There are some new pre-constructed decks you can buy in the MTG Arena store, and these decks are based on winning decks from Magic World Championship 30 back in October. So we're going to have a look at these decks, see how good they are in best of one according to the stats, how much these cost depending on the rares and mythics that you need to complete the decks, and whether they're worth it at all. So let's go into all that now. Welcome back to the channel. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe if you haven't already, because we're going to have a look at these decks that are available in the store for now, and we're going to work out if they're worth spending any gems on at all. First of all, there are 6 decks that are available. So we have Demir Demons on the left here, Golgari Midrange, Mono Red Aggro, Golgari Ramp, Demir Midrange, and Gruul Prowess. So those are the 6 decks that are available on the decks tab at the bottom there. And the cost for these decks depends on how many rares, mythics, and whatever other cards are in the decks, and they take off the price, they discount the price depending on how many you have. So for instance, for the mono red aggro deck, for me it's showing me a price of 4,280 gems, which is a lot of gems. And it's because I don't have a lot of the rare and mythic cards that are in there, or at least I don't have 4 copies of them. But for the Demir Demons deck, it's actually showing me a price of just 10 gems because I basically have all of the cards. So your prices will be different depending on which of the rare or mythic or other cards that you already have in your collection. But there are some things you probably want to look out for when you're looking at the price. So for instance, with the Demir Demons deck, which is showing me a price of 10 gems, if I go to buy that, it will show me which cards I'm missing that it will give me for those gems. So it will give me 3 copies of Duress from an older set and 8 swamps. Now, obviously, I don't need any swamps. It's just a different style, I guess. I guess I don't have already. And with Duress, I have 4 copies of Duress. I probably have a lot more than 4 copies of Duress from possibly from this set, from M20, or from other sets since, because Duress comes out all the time. But I don't have 3 copies from this particular set, which is an old set. So I don't know why it's trying to sell me cards from an old set. They're obviously still legal in standard because they've been reprinted. But I would be paying 10 gems basically for nothing because I could just make this deck. I have all these cards at the bottom here. I could just add 3 copies of Duress from another set and 8 of any swamp, and I have the deck. So the 10 gems would be completely wasted. So you have to look out for things it's going to charge you for if you already have the cards, but from a different set than the one that's specifically on their deck list. Kind of awkward. It's definitely better to have a look at the deck list first, just to make sure what you're paying for. And also with the Golgari mid-range deck, it's showing me a price of 290 gems. If I have a look at that, it's showing me forests and swamps, and again the 3 copies of Duress, and 1 Caustic Bronco. Now, if I wanted to make this deck, I've got all the other cards here. You can have a look at the full deck list by just clicking on the listing. Now, I could make this whole deck. I could have only 3 copies of Caustic Bronco, which is what I have in my collection, and I could add 1 more Cut Down, or 1 more Anoint with Affliction, or whatever other card, maybe 1 more land. It doesn't really matter. I can add 1 more card, and I can have this deck minus 1 Caustic Bronco, and I don't think it's going to make an absolutely massive difference to my win rate with this deck or how much I enjoy playing with it. So if you happen to be missing like 1 card from it, I wouldn't worry too much about maybe just crafting, any other commons or uncommons that you're missing, or just swapping out any other cards. If you already have the bulk of the rares and mythics that make up the deck, you probably don't really want to be wasting wild cards on an extra copy of a card. Maybe you don't use Caustic Bronco very much. I know I don't. So I have 3 copies. I'm probably never going to really want to have a 4th copy. So it would be a bit of a waste of a wild card for me to spend it there. So I'm not going to spend that there. If you want to, you can. But to be honest, it probably makes more sense just to swap it out for a different card. So that's showing me a price of about almost 300 gems for 1 rare that I'm missing. If we jump ahead to the Gruul Prowess deck, that's 680 gems for me, and it's showing me what I'm missing here. Basically, 2 rares and Swift Spear, which I have 4 copies of in another set, shop, which I already have 4 copies of and mounted. So it's basically 2 manifold mouse cards, or manifold mice. And yeah, they are really important in this deck. If I was going to play this deck, I probably would craft those because they're just so good, so difficult to deal with. So if I wanted to play this deck, I probably would make them. But it's given me 680 gems, basically for 2 rares I'm missing. So it's charging about 300 gems per rare. Maybe a little bit extra for commons or uncommons it thinks you're missing, even if you have them from different sets. But also the mythics have different prices as well. So if you have a look at the Demir mid-range deck, I have 2 rares that are missing from my collection for this deck and 1 mythic. So that's given me a price of 1,100, which means we're getting about 300 per rare, and we're getting about 600 per mythic. That's what it's charging us. If we have a look at the golgari ramp deck as well, about 1,200 it's charging me, and I'm missing 2 mythic cards, plus the duress again, for some reason. So basically 300 gems per rare, 600 gems per mythic, very roughly speaking. So the question is, if you're missing a rare or a mythic from these decks, is it worth spending those gems to get that? Or are there better ways you could spend your gems to build the decks that you want to build? Well, one thing you might notice is if you wanted to buy a pack, you could go and buy a pack for 200 gems. And in every pack, you get 1 rare or mythic in the pack, but you also get some wildcard progress. You also get some golden pack progress. Now, it has updated to show that golden pack progress should increase for any standard and alchemy packs that you buy. And I just bought a Duskmourn pack and saw the golden pack progress go up. So it does seem to go up when you buy any standard or alchemy packs. So you get the rare in the pack, you get the wildcard track progress, and you get the golden pack progress, which when you get a golden pack has 6 other rares or mythics in it. So that basically works out to mean for every 200 gems you spend on a pack, not that I recommend spending gems on packs, but just to show the comparison, you would get 1.8 rares, roughly speaking, slightly rounded up, for each pack that you buy. Which means if you buy a deck in the store where you're missing 1 mythic and you're spending about 600 gems for that mythic, you could have just bought 3 packs, and buying 3 packs would give you about 5.5 rares or mythics, possibly wildcards as well. It makes much more sense to me to buy the packs with the gems and then just use your wildcards to craft whichever cards you're missing from these decks in order to build the decks that you want. If they want to make the decks a decent price, what I think they should probably do is change it so that you're spending 1 to 200 gems per rare, maybe 3 to 400 gems per mythic. Even that sounds maybe a little bit too high. Maybe they should just reduce it by half, which means it would be about 150 gems for a rare, 300 gems for a mythic. That might make it just about worthwhile, rather than buying all the packs and opening those and getting some other random rares and mythics and hopefully getting a wild card. It would make it a little bit easier to be able to say that it's worth it. And the other thing you might be wondering anyway is, are these decks actually any good? So if I wanted to build them, whether I'm spending gems or just using some wildcards, are these decks worth it at all? Well, the Demir Demons deck, if we have a look at this deck, you can see on untapped.gg, it will say the win rate that people get using this deck with these exact cards. And you can have a look at different ranks as well. So having a look at just Platinum, you can see the Demir Demons deck, which won the Magic World Championship, by the way, actually has a 48.6% win rate out of 1,800 games in Platinum Best of 1, which is surprisingly low. You would probably hope that a deck worth winning the Magic World Championship might be at least 55 to 60% win rate or something around that. But no, it's actually 48.6 based on all those stats. So the difference here might be because Magic World Championship is more of a best of 3 kind of situation, and this is in best of 1, things are much more aggro focused, so maybe it's just not quite so fast. Although there is quite a bit of removal. Maybe if you just changed a few things in this deck, took out a few duress, added a few more cut downs or a little bit more removal, maybe it would work even better in best of 1. But this is a best of 3 deck list. So I wouldn't necessarily suggest using this deck as it is, because If you're in Platinum and you're getting a 48.6% win rate, you're not going to advance any higher, you're just going to be stuck at the bottom of Platinum. Now the next one is the Golgari mid-range deck, and having a look at this one on untap.gg, it actually shows a 48.9% win rate out of 690 games. So again, less than 50%, which is kind of surprising. Not too good. Again, maybe take out a couple of duress, add some other removal, maybe it would work a bit better. If you do happen to use this deck and have a look at the stats, the types of decks you tend to lose against, you probably could have a look at how you could adjust this deck to beat those different types. But as it is, it doesn't look like it's going to do that well in standard best of one. The next one is the mono red aggro deck. And just to spoil this, in untapped.gg, it records a 61.2% win rate out of 550 games, so a slightly lower sample size, but still 550 games is a pretty decent sample to show a 61.2% win rate. And this one also has the fewest number of rares or mythics compared to the other decks that are available in the store, and that's mostly because of the lands. In a mono red deck, you don't need to have any rare lands at all. In fact, we've got uncommon lands and just basic mountains. We don't have any rares here at all. But in the other ones, there's between 12 and 18 rare lands in each of those. So it really boosts the number of rare cards in the deck. So actually, this is only the most effective deck out of all the ones on the current list of decks you can buy. It's also the cheapest, most budget friendly. So that's really cool. But we're going to have a look at the other decks as well, just to have a look at what kind of win rate we're getting from those. And the Golgari ramp deck is showing a win rate of 47.6% at 1,100 games in Platinum. So 47, that's the lowest one out of all of these, which is kind of surprising. Looks like a really good deck to play. But yeah, it just happens to not do so well in best of one. Again, maybe just a little bit too slow. Maybe the duresses are adding to that because you might often miss with that, and you might need to remove things quicker than you do in best of three. And then we have the Demir mid-range deck. Now this one has a 54.1% win rate on Untapped, which is not that bad out of 920 games. So it's a decent number of wins and not too small a sample size as well. So if you're thinking of crafting one of these decks or buying one of these decks or building something as close as possible to one of these, then this might be one. If you don't like the mono red aggro route, which I know lots of people don't enjoy playing or don't enjoy playing against, then maybe you might prefer something a bit more like this. And then the last deck is the Gruul Prowess deck. This one has a 54.8% win rate out of 530 games. So this is the second best out of the win rates recorded, according to the stats on untap.gg. So however reliable you think those stats are, I think it's a pretty good way of judging how good a deck is. If you like this kind of aggro playstyle that's a bit more varied than just the straight mono red aggro, this one might be one that you enjoy to play as well. So yeah, I wouldn't recommend crafting the Demons deck as it is, the Golgari mid-range or ramp ones, because they just don't have a very high win rate according to those stats. But the mono red aggro, the mere mid-range, or the Gruul Prowess deck all seem pretty good. So let me know what you think in the comments about these pre-constructed decks as an idea in the store. Do you think they are useful to have? Do you think they're still too expensive like I do? And what do you think about these particular decks? Do you play with any of those? Do you think they're really good? Are the stats somehow misleading? Do you think maybe the Demons deck is a lot better than a 48% win rate would show? Let me know what you think in the comments. And if you want to support the channel, don't forget you can go to patreon.com/GameschoolDadMTG to help support the channel and join my Discord as well. It'd be great to see you there. So, thanks for watching this video to the end. I'll see you in the next one.